recorded and available on YouTube. So, good afternoon. My name is Anna Strzelecka, and I would like to welcome you in today's event, Racing Ahead, in conversations with Megan Yates. Megan is currently a mechatronics student, and she used to be a DMU racing placement intern. I'm a senior lecturer in the School of Engineering and Sustainable Development, and I will be hosting this discussion. And this event aims to explore Megan's experience of being a woman in engineering, both in her career as well as her education. And we will look at the challenges Megan has faced and how she has overcome these. So, and also we would like to hear from Megan about what advice she has for women wanting to have a career in engineering. At the end of the session, we will have time for some audience questions. So if you do have any questions you would like to ask Megan, please put them in the comment. And I would also like to let you know that the event will be recorded. I hope you will enjoy it, and please join me in welcoming Megan.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
So first of all, obviously you've already said a lot about me. I'm Megan. I'm currently studying mechatronics engineering at De Montfort University. I entered my degree as a mature student, so I didn't come straight out of school. And I did an apprenticeship before I started. So I did an apprenticeship as a vehicle technician. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, so maybe tell us about why didn't you come straight from the uni, and how did you actually started working in the field?
Basically, we moved to Switzerland when I was quite young. I was about 8 years old, and they have a different school system there. So from 15 onwards, most people go into apprenticeships rather than actually doing A-levels or GCSEs. I'm not sure what the system is here, but so you go straight into an apprenticeship, or you can go on to further education, but that wasn't really an option for me because I didn't have the grades for it. Mm-hmm. So I really loved cars. I loved doing things with my hands, I like being practical. So for me, it was an obvious choice to go into being a car mechanic.
Oh, that's so interesting. So, how was the internship in general? Because it's quite young to be doing an internship at that age, isn't it?
Yeah, it was quite young. I found that it's difficult at that age to decide what you want to do with your life. And I don't feel like, even at 17, 18, I felt like I never really knew if I'd carry on or if I'd stop. I think it's one of those things that as you advance and you get older, you start to realize what you enjoy more, what you don't enjoy, what you're passionate about. And when you reach those stages, it's a lot easier to find a job that you enjoy than when you're in a young age and you're trying out things, because you can't go from 15 straight into an apprenticeship and decide this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Also, on a woman's front, it's not very practical in a sense that when you look at the future, there's not many women vehicle technicians that I knew. So it didn't feel like a very safe option sometimes, because I didn't see people advancing in their career that were women at all. And also you don't see women in that career raising families, being just themselves, I guess. I don't know. You don't see that at all.
Well, I think I agree with you here, because I remember for me, I had to decide what course to select at 18 or 17, and I didn't know what to do. So I kind of didn't go directly into engineering myself, because I thought that like mathematics will be a safe choice, because it was kind of not clear what to do. I didn't have many kind of role models in this case, but maybe would you like to tell us a little bit about any kind of successes or achievements in your career so far?
I've had a lot of successes and achievements. Last year, I had my son. He's now 19 months old.
Oh,
And I came back to uni when he was 5 months old to complete my final year. And I think despite having to do the end of my degree with a child on board, it was very challenging. It was very hard because you don't find the time like you used to. And I'm just really proud of myself that I've managed to get through it. And I've actually had really, really good grades as well. So I'm really happy with that. I'm really positive about that. I'm also feeling really positive about my placement that I did in 2021 for the DME racing team. For those
oh,
of you that don't know, DME racing is it's a student-led race team where you build and design and build a car and then go compete with other universities, essentially. And I had a lot of really good experiences there, and I felt like I'd been part of so many students' progression, and I'm really proud of that too. Yeah.
Well, to add to that, this is a competition organized every year by IMechE, and there is quite a few universities, not only from the UK but from other countries as well, that take part in it. But was your placement interrupted in any way by COVID? I would say it was.
Yeah, it was quite hard because basically I started off my placement in COVID. We were in the middle of lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't get into the workshop until 3 months before the event. So we couldn't actually design a new car and build a new car. We had to go based on an existing model that was already pre-built, and we tried to improve on that. That was the only way that we could take place that year. It was just, there was no chance that we could build an entire car in 3 months' time, because Leicester as well, it was one of the areas that was in lockdown the longest. So we was like, it was, yeah, just not possible. But really fun though. We had a really good time improving on the car, and we did actually go to the event and we raced, and it was honestly one of the best times of my life. I've really enjoyed it.
I'm happy to hear that, because we as a school are quite proud of what our students can achieve, and they've been improving so much every year. They've been doing that, and it was the same for you, even though you had so many challenges, because honestly you didn't have the full year to work on a car to even get to know your team, I presume, because you were all in separate households basically.
Yeah, it was really
So
hard. It was
so
really hard. It was really hard to get students involved as well. I think a lot of them, as much as you tried to keep them engaged, it was very hard to keep that engagement going throughout the year. And once everyone came into the workshop, that's when really a lot of students started showing up. I felt like before that, it was very difficult to keep people interested.
I can
Definitely.
imagine that, because, well, you're mostly working with engineers, and that's the part of the degree or profession. It's you want to do things rather than sit at home in front of a computer and talk to people online. So I guess we all struggled with that then. But what would you say was your biggest challenge during that placement,
I think,
except of COVID, of course?
apart from COVID, the biggest challenge was potentially, like I said, keeping students involved. I had a few challenging moments. I felt like it was also because of COVID, you couldn't talk to the sponsors properly. You couldn't get in touch with the sponsors properly, and the students couldn't get in touch with the sponsors properly, which was really hard to navigate that and also keep on track of everything that everyone had to do. When I did eventually get into the workshop, I found like students were so supportive of me, and I wasn't expecting that. I was kind of expecting people to turn around and be like, no, I'm not having her manage me, kind of thing. So yeah, it was really nice to see that so many students were on board with me being part of the team. And also I did have like a couple of difficult encounters, I'd say. I
Mm-hmm.
think I had a student come in and he said that he wanted to be the team leader for the following year, for example.
Mhm.
And I remember he went straight up to a technician, and I had this a lot. Like, people went in, they went straight up to a technician and said, "Are you the team leader?" And they'd be like, "No, it's her." And the disbelief on their face sometimes was quite unreal. It was weird. But then they come to me, and this guy, he came to me, and after asking the technician a load of questions about the role, and he basically pointed to me and said, "No, you need to ask her. She's doing the role. You need to ask her." And he came to me, instead of asking questions about the role, he asked a load of questions about the car, like in-depth questions that, for instance, my students would have known because they were working on those subjects, but I, as a team leader, wouldn't have known because it was I was more of a general kind of like, you do this, you do that, we'll work on this
Of
together.
course.
Yeah, so I didn't know things that in depth. And then he turned around and went back to the other technician and continued to ask him questions about the role. After, well, also he explained his own answers to me. So he was like, it's hard to put. It's like he was overcomplicating things, and then I don't even know how to explain it. It was just one of them moments of shock where you realize that they've just discredited you in some way, or made you feel like you're not capable, and then walk off and decide that this is the person that they should be talking to because they know more. And that, I feel like you face that a lot as a woman in engineering. I can't even explain it properly. It's really difficult to explain how that.
It is. I have experienced this myself, and to be fair, I've just realized how bad it is during the online teaching, because I would be in a room with some of my male colleagues, lecturers, and I would see the difference in the way they were treating me compared to them. And I was stunned at the beginning of the lockdown, which the first month, and it was very difficult for me to deal with that basically they would. The colleague would say, well, she's in charge here. She's the module leader or program leader or whatever I was at the time. And they would be, okay. And they would still talk to the male lecturer, even though I had the knowledge. They were just there to support me. It's like I didn't almost exist. It is a weird feeling. And it's very difficult to explain that unless you actually encounter this, you live through that. So I guess that is something that we do have to deal with sometimes. But I've noticed, I don't know how about you, but the more people know me, the better they get at actually appreciating what I know, what I can do, and so on. So I would say, what is your response in a situation like that? Because unfortunately, we do encounter that, especially in new places. So what would you advise prospective female engineers to do in this case?
It's a difficult one. I think most of all, you need to realize that it's not about you personally as a person. It's purely something completely different. Like, you need to make sure that you don't take that on board as you're not capable or you're not doing a good job. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes, like, none of us know the answers to every question, or and stuff like that. You shouldn't let that make you feel like you're not capable. And at the end of the day, if he knows the answer to his own question as well, is you can just learn from him, and you got more information in the long run. So it doesn't matter. Just learn from him. If he wants to teach you that, go for it.
Exactly. Well, what I've noticed is also quite interesting. If I would point out this behavior to my male colleagues in meetings and so on, the supportive ones would actually start noticing it, because some male, some guys in general, they don't even see that, and they are sometimes not aware they do that.
Yeah.
So when I started pointing it out, they were like, oh yeah, actually, you're right. Some of them are completely dismissing you, which is not great, is it?
Yeah, I had some team members in the room at the time, and they both pointed out to me and said, like, oh, this was weird. Like, why did he treat you like that? But like, they said in a way that it felt like I had to prove myself, but the technician didn't, or the the other person didn't. So it was one of those where you don't have to prove yourself.
Yep. But do you ever feel like you had to prove yourself more because of the fact that you might have been the only woman in the room?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, you always feel that pressure because in some cases you feel like the first woman to have been doing it, which obviously I wasn't the first team leader, so I didn't have that pressure as much. But it does feel like you come behind so many guys that have done it that you just want, you don't want to do better than them, but you want to do the same level, or like give people the same experience that they've given them. But sometimes it's better to do things your own way as well. It's yeah.
That's really true, and I don't know that many people know that, but the Formula Team competition was actually started by a woman. So it was thanks to us, let's say, that the whole competition started. So yeah, they should be more respectful, I would say, of what we have to say and what we can do. But going back to your internship, and maybe what made you decide to start studying engineering? And well, you're now doing mechatronics, right? So what made you do that? And was that the course you started with, or you started with a different one? Okay.
I started with mechatronics. So mechatronics was actually the name of my apprenticeship as well. That's how they called it in Switzerland. Was you had the mechatronics mechanic kind of thing, and from there I thought, well, actually it involves everything that I like. I enjoy the mechanical side, I enjoy the electrical side, like I said, I enjoy the coding, and I enjoy the robotics side of things. I just like seeing everything come together, so mechatronics just made sense for me. The reason I moved on from the vehicle technician role to go into university was actually because I had a car accident. Yeah, I came round a bend and someone front-ended me, so I just decided that it was time for a change because it damaged my back. I couldn't lift things the same way. I didn't have the same endurance that I had before.
Okay.
So I felt like it was time for a change.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, the university accepted people with BTECs as well. Many universities didn't. So
Yes.
it was an obvious choice to go to Damanput because they were accepting me with the qualifications that I had,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm really happy about as well because, like I said, not many universities take on people with BTECs, but I feel like when you come out of school, sometimes you don't have the best grades, but as you grow up a bit, you realize actually I'd be really capable at something else. But then it feels like because of your grades that your chances passed,
Yeah.
which it hasn't. It should never have passed. Like you should always be allowed to learn is the way I see it, because when you're passionate about something, you can learn anything you want to.
Oh, that's so true. And from my perspective as a lecturer, and I'm a foundation degree engineering year zero program leader, that's what we're all about here, to actually give people chances. Because, well, as I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do at 18. So I can imagine that it's very difficult for many people, especially with how the school system is designed in the UK, that you have to decide quite early whether you're taking mathematics or physics. And quite often, actually, BTEC students are better than the students that have A levels, surprisingly. And as you said, it's not necessarily the case of what your grades are, because quite often students that were not the top of their class, but somewhere kind of upper half, they do very well. They do great in a professional setting. And what you've done when you were like 16, 18 shouldn't set your trajectory of the rest of your life. So definitely that's a good thing, that we do accept students with BTEC, and I'm happy that you benefited from that. So definitely that's great. But you mentioned that you had that break after your placement. You had your son. So
Yeah.
what was, well, you say the most difficult part for you to kind of to get back to uni life, basically, after having a son?
I think I think everything was a bit challenging. Like, obviously, motherhood does change you, and you don't realize it before you become a mum, that everything, your whole life starts revolving around this little kid, but you're trying to not give up your dreams as well. Like, you want to still continue to progress. And honestly, it might sound really weird, but I'm so excited about the fact that I can make him his Christmas presents. Like, if through engineering, if he wants a car, I will make him a car. Like,
That, yeah,
what better options do you have than to be able to do stuff like that for your own kids? Like,
that sounds amazing for
I think that's
him.
what
That
motivated me the most, is to come back and finish my degree so that I can do stuff like that, and I have that kind of access and availability. And yeah.
okay. And for in general, students, not only women, but kind of, what would be your advice when it comes to when they do come to study engineering, and then they are thinking of having an actual engineering job later on? What would you say is important to do apart from your degree? What else should they look at or look out for?
I think there's so much that we can learn from other people. Like, I feel like some people get really set in the competitiveness of it all. So, for instance, you can look at another person, they've got the job you want, or they got the grades you want. But instead of looking at them with envy, look at them with admiration. Like, look at them and think, oh my gosh, you've done this. I can do this too. Can you teach me? Or, like, you know what I mean? Instead of trying, like, I've seen so many people try to drag other people down as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those where you can't let that envy and that them feelings get in your way of helping them progress, but also them helping you progress. Like, at the end of the day, if we want more women in engineering, we need to work as a team. You can't be dragging other women down, or other men down even. Like, they are also there to help us get up that ladder, I think.
Well, definitely, definitely, that's so true. And with that in mind, what do you think would make more women and girls study STEM subjects like mechatronics or mechanical engineering or even electronics?
I think, like, one major factor is obviously already having role models that you can see. Like we discussed, I didn't have many role models growing up, neither as a mechanic nor as an engineer. Like, I haven't really seen that many females in the field so far. It's starting to progress. Like, you see Sophia Flörsch, she's a racing driver. I think she raced at Le Mans as well and stuff like that. So, like, but there's not as much coverage on her as there would be, for example, like Lewis Hamilton. But then F1 Le Mans is different concept in general. But I think we should show that stuff more and show more women in these roles, and also women of all ages, because when you look at a career, you want to know, like, when I start my family, when I go through these stages of life that women go through, you want to know that this is a place that will support you through that. So
Well,
seeing women having kids, going through menopause, like whatever issues women always go through, because that's what we biologically do,
mhm.
it's nice to see people going through that and being supported, and that can encourage people to go into careers knowing that they see people that have already done it and been through it.
Oh, definitely, that's true. And I think one of the major aspects here is also the fact that quite a lot of women are worried that they will have that break because, well, they had a kid, and then their colleagues, male colleagues, will not necessarily have that break. So what I actually think is wonderful, as in Norway it's mandatory for both men and women to take maternity and paternity leave. So it's not a decision a guy can make to say whether he wants to do it or not. They have to do it. So then it's all equal. So we have all equal opportunities. And if you have a break because you just had a child, then your partner will also have a break because you had a child. Because unfortunately, otherwise, I don't think it will work as well, because it might always be somewhere at the back of the head that, oh, I'm having a break. So what will happen when I come back, if I will come back?
That's the thing as well. I think a lot of men, because they don't go through the depths of it, everyone sees it as a break. It's not a break. It is full on sleep deprivation. It's not a nice, well, the baby cuddles and everything is all cute and nice. It is a very hard time to go through. And I think people underestimate how hard that is because they haven't been through it yet, or men will never go through it realistically the same way.
And maybe I would also add that we don't talk as much about it because you only hear that it's all, butterflies and it's wonderful because, well, yes, it is wonderful on the one hand, as you said, but on the other hand, it is a hard job. And I find whenever I visit my friends with children, I see that it is a full-time job and it doesn't end when you come home. It's you still have that child to care for, and that's something that we should be recognized more for, because we're the ones that have to organize most of the child's life. It doesn't end when you come from work and you're managing a team. You're coming home and you're managing a different team.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is. I think, like you said, I think definitely men should be allowed to take more time off as well. Like, I had a C-section, so I could not physically lift my baby after birth. It was very painful. I had a longer recovery period. It was I couldn't drive for, I think it was 8 weeks.
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
If I can't drive my child to hospital, I have to either wait for an ambulance to arrive or my partner to come home to drive us to hospital. Like, it's because I wouldn't have been covered on the insurance. It's one of those things. Like, I think people underestimate the recovery time from that experience. Definitely.
Well, definitely. And as kind of going back to the kind of encouraging girls, I think we should start as early as we can to give those role models and actually show that women can do great. And as you said, it's not a competition, it's a teamwork quite often. And I think in general, this gender division it keeps happening even with like football teams. It's men's are so popular, but also the female football is also great, but it's not as much talked about as the usual way of, yes, watching football. You mean football? Oh yes, we're watching men. So that's quite interesting, to changing the perception, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, women's football is becoming a lot more popular now, more popular than the men's even, which is really interesting to see how many men are actually supporting this team. I think another thing that people could do in relation to paving the way for women to come in is not just offering maybe more paternity leave for men. It sounds contradictory, but it would really help women because it helps with the recovery. You're not as sleep deprived. Like, them first 2-3 months is so brutal.
We're not encouraging women to have kids right now.
No one wants to have kids anymore, and I completely understand why, because you have to choose. It feels a lot of the time like you have to choose between your career or between having a family, and a lot of women have decided that they're fed up of choosing the family side because that comes with all the chores, household stuff like that, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be a mixed effort. A woman should be able to go to work, a man should be able to go to work, and then the household stuff and the kids should be a joint effort at the end of the day. I'm not saying this is for everyone, obviously. I just think it should be a possibility.
Yes.
For people that want to live that life. But also, I think it's hard when there's no part-time courses. Like, there's not many part-time courses in engineering. There's also not many part-time jobs in engineering.
That's
you
true.
don't see many advertised. Then if you want to get more women involved, why aren't there more available spaces?
Also more flexible time as well for working. It doesn't necessarily have to be part-time, but it could be flexible timing to work around kind of school runs or kindergarten and so on, because someone has to do it. So if the workplace is not more flexible, then, well, obviously you want to care for your child. So this is a big part of it that should be taken into account. And as you said, I agree with you completely. If more men were kind of forced, actually, it was mandatory for them to take that leave, it would be much easier for women to recover, not to be completely sleep deprived for a few months, if you're lucky, and then get back to some sort of work. And the same goes for the part-time engineering courses. I know firsthand that this is a big problem, that there is a few universities at the moment that offer them. We offer them for postgraduate degrees, but not so much for undergraduates, and this is also a problem. It's not allowing more women to actually then kind of have that experience and also be able to finish their degrees.
Yeah, I think there's that, and then also if we did open up more part-time positions and stuff like that, it would help also not just benefit women, it would also benefit a lot of people that feel like financially they'd struggle to do a full-time degree, because let's be realistic, the government doesn't provide that much money for you to survive on. If
Not
I didn't have
anymore.
my partner, I wouldn't be able to afford anything. Like, I'd be eating beans all day,
Of,
every day. I don't know,
of,
like, it'd be, you
of
couldn't.
course, because they haven't changed the bursary in how many years? So your grant from the government is still the same, but everything costs, I don't know, twice as much now.
Lots more. Yeah,
So
I saved a lot during my placement. I saved half of my wages every month before um before before I had my kid, and with the soaring prices, literally all of mine and my partner's savings just depleted.
I
In
can imagine.
It was ridiculous how bad it was. So my partner's actually had to change jobs now. He's had to go for something where he earns a bit more money so that I can finish my degree, because we wouldn't have survived. Whereas before we were financially somewhat well off, the two of us. It
Mm-hmm.
now reached the situation, if I paid for childcare this year, I'd have no chance. It was
Yes.
like, childcare is another thing that is just so expensive, where you could potentially look into spreading the cost over the child's life instead of having to fork out all the money at once in such a short space of time. And actually the support from the government on that is very limited as well, because you have to earn have a household income that is very low. I mean, I think they said something like 18 grand. I don't know a person that can survive on 18 grand, let alone a person that wants to study and have a job. And like, they expect you literally to be a mum, have a job and look after your kid, but also put them in childcare, and you can't do
Yes.
it all. Like, you can't
No,
do it.
you can't. And we have been discussing this from the kind of being staff at a university, and not only this one, a previous one as well, when I worked in, about having actually some sort of childcare system at the university, because the students could benefit from that definitely, and then the staff could benefit from that as well, because that's what's tricky sometimes, that we have to do a school run, sorry, before we start the classes, and then run to uni to actually start lecturing. So I don't think it's any no longer the life kind of the system is no longer designed for the intensity we have at work.
No.
It just doesn't work, doesn't seem to be working, which should definitely be improved on. So yeah. And out of curiosity, is your partner an engineer?
No, he's a car mechanic.
Okay, well, so at least at least it's in the area.
Yeah, we get on really well, because we both have the same passions. We still have the same understanding. So it's great to have someone that's also supporting me through my degree and helping me out in the background with the littling and everything. Like, he's always been, whenever I've been unsure about something, he's always pushed me and said, no, you can do it. You can really do it. Like, there's nothing stopping you. You go for it.
That's great to have from a partner or from family or even friends, because sometimes, and I think it will be in any side of life really, you get unsure about yourself, or something that I've noticed quite a lot for women in engineering is so-called an imposter syndrome, that you sometimes think, oh, what am I doing here? Should I really be here? Or people will realize that I don't belong, which is so untrue. And if you let it overwhelm you, it will stop you from achieving greatness. So, did you ever encounter this imposter syndrome in your career?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, you don't see many other women in the field. So people like men, like even my partner, he doesn't even fully understand what I go through in general as a woman. So that we always butt heads every now and again because we've had different experiences in life. And the reality is that men don't always have the same experiences as us. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it means that they're also limited in being able to understand what we go through on a daily basis. And
Yes.
it's part of both of us having to communicate together and say, right, well, you had this experience, I had this experience, we don't necessarily agree on everything, but coming together and actually just offering that level of understanding can really help, I think. And I think in the workforce, when you don't have that many people that understand you, because you don't have enough women around to understand you, it's really hard to communicate with men because they don't talk the same as us. They don't talk about their feelings and emotions and whatnot. So when you talk to them and say, actually, I've had a really difficult experience with this, it can be very closed off responses because you're not getting the empathy that you're kind of hoping for, because they don't understand it, because they've not been through it and they can't understand it. And that's okay, but it feels isolating, to be honest, sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, definitely, I would say so. That's why it's as you said, it's crucial to have more women in the workforce in general, and to give those perspectives and to be able to actually understand you when you talk about something, because it's quite I don't think, well, amazing and sad at the same time when you talk to women and in those professions that are predominantly male, how the experience are similar. And even though you have sympathetic colleagues, they don't quite get it because they don't have to deal with the same treatment. And as you said, they don't think the same. So for them is a bit tricky. But well, so you're, I would say, close to finishing your degree now, aren't you?
Yeah, I decided to repeat 2 modules. Everything else I did really well in. I got first.
Okay.
In 2 modules now. There just wasn't enough time with
Well,
everything going on anymore. So
I can imagine that. And I think this is actually a good comment to make in general, that it's not a race for finishing the degree and actually starting your life post university. You can have a break, because quite a lot of students, they just say, oh, I want to finish the 3 years and be done with it. But
yeah,
sometimes it makes more sense to actually take more time and do a placement, as you did your placement. And then if you actually say, I can't do everything, it's okay to say, this is not possible and I will take my time, because I think it's, in general, you have to take care of yourself in the first place to be able to actually do well. And if you overwhelm yourself, then that's it. You can't do it. So okay, so 2 modules and you're free finally. So
yeah.
what's the next step? What are you doing now? What are your plans?
Honestly, I was actually planning on doing my master's next year.
Oh,
So this year, I'm saving up half of my maintenance loan to pay for childcare so that I can go through my master's next year, because without childcare, it's no chance I can do it full time.
mm-hmm.
It's going to be very full on for another year yet.
Okay. Well, that's very impressive that you actually want to take it on, but I would assume that it's easier to do it when you're still kind of studying, than have a break and then come back to it later, probably. Isn't that the case?
If I stopped now, I wouldn't come back to do my master's. I wouldn't have time. If you've got to work, because also if you do a postgraduate master's degree, you're going to have to work alongside it because the government doesn't fund that maintenance loan like they have done in the undergraduate degree. So you're going to have to work alongside looking after a child, alongside doing your full-time study, which is just, no one can take that on. That's too much.
It is too much. So yeah, it does make sense. But are you interested in pursuing like the, I don't know, chartered engineer status or something else like that?
Yeah, the CEng is what I'd like to get.
Yeah, so for that you do need your master's.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. And what would you do you have any kind of hints or tips for anyone that would like to kind of pursue the same career as you, or I guess predominantly women in engineering? What would you advise them?
I think, first of all, don't ever let anyone tell you can't do it. I've heard that numerous times over my lifetime, and it's just simply not true and outdated. So don't believe them. If you're passionate about it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as scary as people think as well. There's so many supportive people around that a lot of the time it gets missed. Like, people don't see it from externally. They hear all these horror stories about how bad things are, but it's not that scary and that horrible. You have a few like awkward and nasty encounters, but it's nothing compared to the actual people boosting you up and letting you know that everything's okay and you're doing fine. And then, like I said earlier, it's a competitive field, but don't get caught up in the competitiveness. Learn from other people and just make sure that you do what you want to do, and just try to support each other, because at the end of the day, we all want to be able to get on that ladder, and you can't do that alone most of the time. And we're stronger in numbers as well. Like, the more women that are in an environment, the less this toxic behavior might come forward, because it'll kind of weed them out a bit.
And also, I think it educates them as well, because what I also I already said that as well, but I've noticed that the colleagues that actually do pay attention, and I point out to them certain behaviors, which I had this one colleague in the past that would basically repeat the same thing I said in a meeting, but like 10 minutes after me. And then when I said something, it was kind of just neglected. But when he said this, it was like, oh my God, this is the best idea ever. And I was very discouraged. But when I pointed out to a few of supporting colleagues, they actually started noticing this and pointing it out. And believe it or not, the guy actually stopped doing it, which was very good. But it might be tricky not to get discouraged by behaviors like that. But as you said, this one left so we can get rid of the bad seeds and have a nice and friendly group we work with. And support is definitely a necessity, and this everywhere really, because without a support system you can't go far. So yeah, thank you for your thoughts. And perhaps because we're running towards the end of the session, but another questions I wanted to ask you. I've noticed from personal experiences that quite a lot of women are neglected, I would say, when it comes to recognizing that someone might have a learning difference, for example, or even ADHD. Apparently, women have completely different symptoms to men, and it's often kind of neglected or completely misdiagnosed. And I wanted to ask about your experiences with that, because I do know you have a learning difference, and how did you get diagnosed, and then how this changed your I don't know, life or in general?
Yeah, so I have ADD and dyslexia. I didn't get diagnosed until I was 23. Previously to that, I went through school thinking I just wasn't very clever.
Mm-hmm.
I had teachers rip up papers that I'd written because the spelling was bad, and I've actually even had a teacher say that I'm not intelligent enough
Oh.
to carry on with any further education. So I found it very hard, like growing up thinking that I just wasn't very intelligent, and
Mm-hmm.
actually it turns out I have ADD. And I found out in my first year at university because one of the lecturers said, actually, this sounds like symptoms of ADHD, and that I should go get myself checked out. So I went to the university. I think it's the university's wellbeing team that I went to.
Yes.
And they put me in contact with the right people. I got diagnosed. I didn't even realize that dyslexia was a thing. And it turned out I had that too. And that explains so many things that knocked my confidence in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if a lot of women go on undiagnosed, because we do have different symptoms. Like I was always shy. I never jumped around. I was never interruptive. I just didn't get the best grades, and I daydreamed a lot.
Yep.
And wasn't very good at spelling. But it's difficult. It's difficult to learn later on in life. Ideally, you'd want an early diagnosis, because the sooner you get the diagnosis, the more you can thrive and get the support you need, or learn the techniques you need to be able to learn. Like for me, learning was very hard. I always found it easier to do something practically, but
Mm-hmm.
in school you learn through watching and reading and writing, and
Yes.
that didn't do me any favors. And as I went into my apprenticeship, like a lot of the time they told me to watch the technicians do stuff, and it did nothing for me. I couldn't take in what they were doing because I'd lose track and I'd lose interest.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that I actually have to be involved in it. I have to do it myself for me to be able to learn something. So I tend to not do, I don't learn the same way as everyone else. I really don't.
Yep. I think this is actually something that one of my students said as well. As you said, the diagnosis explains so much, because I've noticed again when I was teaching the student mathematics that he was doing certain things which are very common for students with dyslexia, and I just kind of stopped him at the end of the class asking, like, have you actually considered that you might have some learning differences? Because also some people think that this is like the end of it, that you can't do anything else. And he did go to the well-being team as well, and he got diagnosed. And after a few weeks, he actually waited for me after the seminar, and he was like, oh yes, this explained so much for him, because finally they gave him some tools and kind of hints how to deal with this, and how to kind of actually approach different styles of learning, and what works for him. And he had the same attitude as you did, that, oh, I'm just not that smart, which wasn't true at all. He was a very smart guy. He just had issues with, well, numbers and letters, and then things kind of moving on the page for him. But I think this is something quite common, because I even had that with my partner when we started dating, and I was like, oh yes, you do that because of your ADHD. And he was like, sorry, what? I don't have ADHD. And I'm like, oh, okay, yes, of course. And then, he started reading about it, and he's like, oh, I have ADHD. And now he's in the process of actually getting diagnosed, because so many things started to make sense to him, because he thought that he does things because, again, he's not very smart, but it turns out that his brain is wired differently, and that's okay. So why not? Well, I think this is an eye opener for many people, and I'm glad that we were able to offer you that support at the DMU, and that it got easier for you after that.
I think it's something as well that potentially employers could look into, helping people getting diagnosed with these things, because it would definitely up productivity and like highlight problematic areas. And I think not everyone will get diagnosed when they're young. But if everyone got involved, like once you finish school, the chances of you actually getting diagnosed are slim unless you go and pay for it privately, which can be really costly.
Yes,
So
it's quite
it'd be
expensive.
good for employers maybe even to help out with that and say, you know what, I've seen you struggling with this. Maybe we can look into seeing if you need a diagnosis or what we can help you with, because there's so much help out there with like autocorrect software, stuff like that for dyslexia, or different workshops you can do for ADD to help you gain the skills that you need to be able to do the job as effectively as everyone else.
Well, definitely, and I think you hit the nail on the head here. That if employers spend more time on that, that would definitely benefit them as well, because you can then get more productivity out of people, because you know also how they work and how they think. So that's definitely definitely something that is worth pursuing for employers. Whether they would listen, it's a different story. But
no, I think also, like, I think so far, when you go into employment, sometimes you're just a number, and it's a very much throwaway culture. So an employee comes in, they're not very good, throw them out,
yep.
get the next one in. And it feels a bit like that sometimes. And I think actually you've put all the training and effort into this person. Why don't you find out why it's not working? Because obviously they're clearly interested enough to start in it. Maybe we need to go down different routes and find out, maybe is there different positions that are more suitable, or you know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where sometimes you're not suited for the role, and that's fair enough. But other times, I think they could benefit from not just throwing in, like moving on to the next person, instead of actually continuing to train up the current person first, because temp workers cost a lot of money as well to get temp workers in.
Yes, and they are not as skilled quite often. But well, I see that we're running towards the end of the session. Are there any questions from the audience, please? Is there anything there? I'm not seeing anything.
While we're waiting for questions, I was thinking as well on things that could motivate more women to come into or start in a degree in mechatronics or mechanical engineering or something like that. Maybe it'd be a good idea to do like free workshops, because I think a lot of women, they either haven't had that experience, they don't know this stuff is out there, and you don't know if you'll enjoy it until you've tried it. So it might be worth doing like monthly free workshops for girls and women, like of all ages, to come join and just see what it's like, you know, designing something for the 3D printer, something that's not gonna be too machine involved or too complicated, but just to get an idea of what engineering actually entails. Because I think a lot of women just think, oh, it's people standing there with their steel toe boots and they have grease all over their arms and their hands and whatnot, and it's not like that anymore, or not always like that. It depends what field you go into.
Yes, of course. And it's also quite interesting because we had a workshop once in a primary school, actually, and we were asking kids to draw like a doctor or a teacher or something, and we asked them to draw an engineer as well. And it was very difficult for them to actually draw that, because they didn't know what it looks like. They quite often think about an engineer like the person that comes to fix your boiler, for example, and not about how what it entails depending on the branch of engineering you want to pursue. But it's quite often quite creative job. It's not just, as you said, machining. It can be you sitting in a workshop if you want to do that, but quite often it's not like that at all. So your idea of having workshops for women in all ages is quite good. And we do at DMU do some work experience that the students come in and they see what we do with our students, and we have little kind of tasks for them when they have to try to build something or test something, which for quite a lot of them is the first time they are doing something like that, which I guess proves your point that it's not that I don't know, straightforward for people, for students generally to get involved into engineering, to see what it really is. So definitely.
Also, engineering is so versatile. Like,
Yes.
you can go design toys, or you can go design cars, or you can, like, there's so many aspects of engineering that people don't even think about. They don't even realize it exists. And I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do at the end of all this, because there's just so many options and so much out there that you can do.
Yes. And I think also one of the kind of comments is, I think from my perspective, is that you can try something, and if you don't like it, then you can change your mind always. You can just start perhaps working. You can always kind of go and do something slightly bit different, because we do get good training. So you can change your mind, and then you can do something else. So yeah, it's not all set in stone. You can always try to do something that actually brings joy. And with that in mind, we're getting towards the end of the session. So I would like to thank you, Megan, for this quite interesting discussion. And I don't know if you have any last words for anyone that might, I don't know, is still kind of doubting whether it's for them to do engineering.
Just do what you want to do. At the end of the day, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And if you're really interested in it, then go for it. And like, also, there's a lot of engineering videos online where you can check out. I find the 3D printing videos really fascinating, because you can design anything and make anything with a 3D printer. So like, go have a look at stuff like that, or see what engineers do. Like, because there's so many engineering videos out there. Just check them out and have a look and see what you think.
Definitely. Thank you, Megan, so much. It was a fantastic discussion, and I wish you all the best with your final 2 modules. I hope they go smoothly and you get the grades you want to, and all the best for your masters, I guess. Are you doing it at DMU or someone else?
I was planning on doing it at DMU. Yeah.
So great. So I might see you around somewhere. So definitely good luck with finding the childcare you need to be successful in your degree. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon, and thank you all that have been listening to us. So have a good rest of your afternoon.